Welcome. My name is Michael Cunningham, and this is day 3 of the End Racism Conference, brought to you by the World Affairs Council of Austin, Global Scholars Diploma Program, and Global Scholars and Global Moot Courts in South Africa. Today, our topic it will be discussing about CRT, critical race theory. You will see a debate with the two schools over that, whether critical race theory should be taught in secondary schools. And then you will also hear a fantastic speech by or introduction and talk by Father Tatoes, Armenian priest. And we'll start today off with a reflection on what is CRT. You're going to listen to both the pros and the cons. Then we will go to Father Tadios's remarks, and then we will go to a debate, or actually in between, when we have people, we'll actually have a discussion and we'll go to our debate. Thank you so much, and please enjoy. If you're listening to this on Facebook Live, again, my name is Michael Cunningham. If you are listening to this later on, please enjoy these remarks. Oh, Father Tadios. Good. Okay. Our next speaker today in our session will be Father Tadios. Father Tadios is a priest of the Armenian Orthodox Church since 1984. He has served in various parishes throughout the Eastern Diocese of the Armenian Church here, the eparchy out of New York. He's a clergy staff member of the Eastern Diocese, having served full-time youth ministry, has been the director of the Department of Mission Parishes, overseeing 14 mission communities, a member of various diocesan committees and dialogues. He's been an instructor and counselor at St. Nurses, seminary, summer conferences, deacon training programs, a counselor, instructor at youth camps. As part of the Department of Creative Ministries, Father Tadios wrote and recorded a number of videos under the title of Choices and a podcast called Good News. In 1994, while serving as a pastor in Hartford, Connecticut, he served as an all-call chaplain at Hartford Hospital and became a member of the Pastoral Services Advisory Committee. I'd like to introduce him. I'd like to say I've known him probably for a decade now. A very, very nice man. He's generous, and he's going to give some time here today to talk to us a little bit about being Armenian experience and the genocide. Father Tadios.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me first apologize for not being so tech savvy with the sharing the screen and everything else. I'm one of those old time guys that speak to people.
Yeah.
So whatever dynamics that others have used, please forgive me. But I would like to give a background and a little understanding of the genocide of 1915, if I may. This past April 24th was the 106th anniversary of the Turkish crime of genocide that shocked the civilized world. In observance of this event, this day has been designated as Memorial Day by the Armenian people. Talat Pasha, as Minister of the Turkish Interior, signed the orders for the massacre of Turkey's entire Armenian minority and made it clear that his government's objective was purely a political one. The noted historian Arnold Toynbee, in his book, Armenian Atrocities, The Murder of a Nation, quotes Talat Pasha as boasting, "After this, there will be no Armenian question for 50 years." What led Turkey to decide that the only way to solve the Armenian question was by eliminating the Armenians? What was the Armenian question? And to find the answers, one needs to go back some 500 years. Following the conquest of Constantinople by Sultan Muhammad II in 1453, the Ottoman Empire became firmly established in Asia Minor. Countless Christian and non-Christian nations in the Near East, the Balkans, North Africa, eventually found themselves under the rule of the Ottoman Turks, an alien nomad army which had swept into Asia Minor from the east and counted Armenia among her earliest conquests. Asia Minor became the homeland of the Turks, the center from which they ruled their vast empire. The Armenians, the Greeks, the Assyrians, and other non-Turks were the Rahia, the cattle, second-class citizens without equal protection under the laws and subject to continuous mistreatment. The 19th century, marked by the rise of nationalism, the shrinking of the world, and power politics, brought chaos to the Ottoman Empire. The Sultan's incessant wars with Russia and others brought about a continuing decline of power, social and economic decay, and European demands for reforms in Turkish-held territory. The Turks reacted with unprecedented massacres of Bosnians, Serbians, Greeks, Macedonians, Bulgarians, Romanians, Arabs, and the Armenians. Excuse me, sorry about that. Their own territorial ambitions and concern over control of the Dardanelles Straits overshadowed the face of the millions in the captive nations. The Turks minorities, including the Armenians, had become pawns in the game of power politics, a game which eventually cost the minorities a total of over 3 million lives. The Armenian question, the issue of equal and just rights for Armenians living in Turkey, was a term used to describe the international political situation of Armenia and the Armenian people, and can be considered as starting with the Russian-Turkish Wars of 1877-1878. The two treaties responsible for bringing the Armenian question before the international conference table were the treaties of San Stefano and Berlin. Excuse me. Both documents provided reforms in Turkish Armenia, with Russia and England acting as guardians for the safety and rights of the Armenian people. But as was the case in the late 19th century and through World War I, material gain and self-interest were the major concerns of Russia and European powers. Turkey, not wanting external influence on how to handle her internal affairs, gave away certain geographical concessions to the Western powers in return for the watering down of crucial reforms into meaningless nothings. Realizing that the European powers cared little for the Armenians and their fate and merely used them as a political tool, the Turkish Sultan decided that he would solve the Armenian question once and for all, and thereby deprive Europe of its wedge. The Armenians, living in the midst of their conquerors, but generally better educated and more successful economically, were a helpless and convenient scapegoat for the Turks, whose empire had been carved up by wars, revolutions, and so-called European diplomacy. There began a policy of systematic reprisals, culminating in 1894 to 1896 with the first of the great Armenian massacres, in which over 300,000 Armenians were killed. Abdul Hamid, the bloody Sultan, had taken a giant step forward in the annihilation of the Armenians, knowing that the often threatened intervention by Europe would never come. Thus, although countless diplomatic exchanges, agreements, promises, threats, and counter-threats marked the period from 1878 to 1896, the question of reforms in Turkish Armenia remained a dead issue at the close of the century. In 1908 came the Young Turks and their revolution. Sultan Hamid was overthrown, a constitution was established, and the equality of all Ottoman peoples was declared. The Armenians saw the promise of a new day. Revolutionary aspirations born of the frustration of European abandonment and in reaction to Turkish persecution was set aside, and Armenians joined with the Turks in creating a new nation in which parliamentary processes were to replace the old law. The Armenians had sought and were now promised equal rights as Turkish citizens. However, in less than a year, in April of 1909, there occurred the massacre of 30,000 Armenians in Adara, Turkey, which the Turks explained as insurrection by reactionaries still loyal to Sultan Hamid. But it was only a preview of things to come, and in fact, the very continuation of Sultan Hamid's policy of liquidating the Armenian question. World War I provided just the conditions Turkey needed to rid Asia Minor of the Armenian people. With most of the world focused on the war in Europe, Turkey now had a free hand to deal with her Christian minority. Three events occurred in 1915 that were to create Armenia's blackest hour in a 2,500-year history. First, all Armenian men in Turkey from the age of 14 to 68 were drafted into the army, where they were forced into labor battalions, ill-fed, ill-clothed, beaten, savagely tortured, driven mercilessly, and killed on convenience and whim. Next came on April 24th, 1915, the arrest and murder of 300 Armenian leaders, clergy, doctors, writers, scientists, university professors, and intellectuals in Constantinople. Excuse me. Finally, the orders were issued by Talat Pasha, Minister of the Turkish Interior, for the deportation and extermination of the Armenian population of Turkey, without discrimination as to age or sex. Were it within the range of one's limited capabilities to properly describe the event as it happened, with all its gruesome horrors, one would be able to paint a picture wherein the world would see a race, the glories of which have penetrated through the darkness of a barbarous age and imprinted thereon the courage, the valor, the creative impulse of its people, led to a point of complete destruction through terrors, wickedness, and slaughter. Men of all races would see before their eyes churches destroyed, cultural and educational institutions torn asunder, whole cities, towns, villages, hamlets depopulated and made barren. They would follow endless caravans of defenseless men, women, and children, getting thinner and thinner to the point of total extinction. They would observe the gruesome apparition of death in various diabolic forms, such as starvation, exhaustion, exposure, criminal assault, and mass murder. Such was the fate of the Armenian people, beginning with and immediately following April 24th, 1915. 1915, 1.5 million Armenians perished. Since the Armenian population of the areas affected by the massacres has been set at more than 2 million, the massacres took almost three-fourths of all Armenians living in Turkey and 1/2 of all Armenians living at the time. This awful toll on human lives was matched by the enormous destruction of Armenian property, estimated at $35 billion, the Turkish occupation of historic Armenian lands, and the dispersion of the Armenian nation to the four corners of the world. There is hardly an Armenian family today that has not lost one or more of its members in this Turkish act of genocide. Perhaps the one thing that shocked the Western world and that sticks in the throat of every Armenian is the sheer brutality and perversiveness of the Turkish mass murders. Numerous accounts can be offered from such American and European observers as Arnold Toynbee, the English historian, Henry Morgenthau, the United States ambassador to Turkey, Sir Austin Henry Layard, an English archaeologist and diplomat, C.R. Norman, the London Times correspondent, Eugene Schuler, the American Diplomatic Corps, and many others. Words cannot attempt to describe the brutality suffered by the Armenians, especially the women and children. But one account offers some hint. One could see long caravans of Armenian peasants being marched into the desert, where they were brutally put to the sword or shot. Women were forced to march completely naked and subjected to the perverted whims of the soldiers and native Turkish villages. Pregnant women were sliced in two. Girls as young as 8 and 9 years old were raped, and if they were unable to continue, they were shot on the spot. During the 1980s, the Armenian Assembly in Washington, D.C. began an oral history project of the survivors of the genocide. I was one of the interviewers who would visit with these survivors to do a survey of their background, their firsthand accounts of what happened to them, what they witnessed during that time, and how they are living lives now in the United States. One of those I interviewed was my father, Manuk Abdaya. My father was a survivor from the province of Sepastia, from the village of Gamis. He was about 7 years old when the genocide occurred. I am omitting the gruesome details of his ordeal, the killings which he witnessed, but offer some closing excerpts from our conversation recorded on May 21st, 1980. And I kept the English language as my dad spoke. Question that I asked: in order for one to be a good Armenian, what must one do? How does one be a good Armenian? His answer: in order to be one good Armenian, first thing you have to do to be good American. If you're a good American, you could be a good Armenian. Go to church, help as much as you can to keep up your heritage, your language. What else could you do? My question: should the Armenians remember April 24th? The answer: I don't know. I know I don't want to remember. I know that much, but of course, in history, history always reminds us what happened past. That's history. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to hear about it, April 24th, because every time I read about it, I get goosebumps. So I don't like to hear too much about it. Of course, people are born here or they didn't see it. They want to hear about it, so they get enthusiasm or something. I don't know what it does to them, but I know I don't want to hear about it, but it shouldn't be erased from the history books of our people. It should be in history books for future generations. Question that I asked: have you told your story to your children or to your grandchildren? The answer: no, I haven't told anybody about my life story because sad. No fun to hear sad story. I want my children to be happy, not killing, massacre. No, I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to say anything. This is first time I'm telling the story of my life. Question that I asked: this tape is going to be heard by the new generation, the future generation of Armenians. What can you tell these people that will listen to this tape? What message do you have for them? His answer: if you want to be good Armenian, you have to be good American citizen first. If you're good American citizen, you to be good Armenian, because we have a wonderful heritage. We have a beautiful history behind us. So it isn't hard to do. You just you just put a little effort to be a good American. That's all it takes. In trying to find an explanation for these tragic happenings, it will not suffice to say that the misfortunes of the Armenian people rest with normal internal disorders of a country. But more exactly, the Turkish crime of genocide is clearly seen as a product of a brand of fanatic Turkish nationalism that engulfed the Ottoman Empire at the turn of the 20th century and continues to this day by the governmental leaders of the Republic of Turkey and Azerbaijan, where any non-Muslim was and is an enemy of Allah. The Turk historically had an insane passion to conquer and savagely plunder his victims. This was a crime diabolically planned and ruthlessly carried out by the leaders of the Ottoman Turkish nation to annihilate the entire Armenian people. While the Turkish government of 1915 and the present government of the Republic of Turkey has failed to destroy the Armenian people, acquired the Armenian question. The Armenians reassert that a people with more than 2,500 years of history, culture, and nationhood have a legal and moral right to live as free men on their historic lands. The crime of genocide against the Armenian people was committed by the Ottoman Turk. While denied officially by the Republic of Turkey, it becomes the millstone and affliction of the Turkish government of today, the successor to the Ottoman Empire, by not admitting its past. For Armenians, such a denial is, as Elie Wiesel once put it, an insult to memory. Why is it important for Armenian memory that such events be recognized? Studies have been done in the field of traumatic memory and its transgenerational transmission. Freud, as well as other psychologists, sociologists, historians, and churchmen, first helped to understand the long-lasting nature of major trauma and the very real ways in which something of those traumatic memories will shape later generations who did not experience the trauma directly. In this instance, Christians of the Ottoman Empire, the Armenians, the Greeks, and Assyrians all have firsthand experience to a centuries-long trail of blood and tears among people who were subjected to periodic mass slaughters under the Ottomans. It is important to call things by the terms used by those who endured them, if only as a measure of basic respect and dignity. As such, Armenians rightly insist on the term genocide, which was coined in the 1940s by Raphael Lemkin to describe a deliberate, systematic killing of an entire people for reasons of race, religion, or ethnicity. A failure to see 1915 as a genocide means that it is much easier to dismiss responsibility, blaming it on the times, but as we know, was an organized and systematic campaign advocated and improved at the highest echelons of the Ottoman Empire. This, however, has never led the Armenian people to despair. Armenians have survived for centuries, enduring trauma after trauma, yet they are alive when some of their ancient adversaries are not. The reason they have endured and survived so much trauma comes precisely from their Christian faith. To overcome trauma, one must first find a safe place in which to tell the story of that trauma, while searching pathways to become healed and grateful to a renewed life. The Armenian Christian gathers in the safety of his church to tell the story, first and foremost, of a traumatized innocent man who was tortured and executed before being resurrected. Every celebration of the Eucharist is a re-narration of trauma. It is, after all, the Last Supper of a condemned man. But the Divine Liturgy also, of course, ends with hope and the triumph of the resurrection. The Armenian people have found the church to tell their story as well. As a Christian, we are commissioned by our baptism to take this story of the triumph of Jesus Christ over death out into the world as the good news. This is precisely what Armenian Christians, like all Orthodox and Catholic Christians, do every Sunday in the liturgy. But even for the Armenian Christian, liturgical therapeutics can remain incomplete or even ineffective if the surrounding political and cultural context remains hostile and in denial. All Christians know that there can be no healing and reconciliation without first confession and admission of responsibility. As Christians, the Armenian people understand and observe this teaching, while for the Turk, it remains outside his ability to reconcile. The story of the heroism and martyrdom of the Armenian people, my people, the victims of genocide, will never fade from the minds of men who believe that justice will triumph. Thank you.
That was excellent, Father Tatoes. Can we ask you a few questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the interest of Armenia and Christianity. What is significant about Armenians being the first Christians, and how does that play in the role of the life of an Armenian?
We wear that badge with honor. The apostles Thaddeus and Bartholomew, apostles of Jesus, came and planted the seeds of Christianity in Armenia in the first centuries. The first martyr saint of the entire Christian church was an Armenian, Queen Santos. She refused to accept paganism as her religion, but chose Christianity through the teachings of Saint Thaddeus, and became the first martyr of the Christian church. In 301, the nation of Armenia adopted Christianity as its official religion. It's the first nation to do so. And we've carried that responsibility to this day. We carry it with pride, with joy, with a sense of responsibility, a sacred responsibility that we have. Nothing will deter us from our faith. We have gone through so many hundreds of years of massacre, and geographically, you know where Armenia is, and it is surrounded by hostile nations, but yet we've maintained this. As many other Orthodox Christians in that area, the faith of the people, the ethnicity of the people, the heritage of the people, the culture of the people, they're all intertwined. They are of one.
Okay. And let me ask you another a question that I was thinking about. The Azerbaijan people today are trying to pull, I guess you'd say, a fast one with Armenia. Explain to them, explain to the people here how this is still continuing with Turkey and the Azure people and stuff.
Azerbaijan is a created country. It was created by stroke of a pen of Stalin. Azerbaijan is about 75 years old. The Azeri people came from the northwestern portion of Iran. There was no country of Azerbaijan. As I said, it was created by Stalin. They are a Turkic people. They are the same people as the people of Turkey are. Armenians have been living in that area, which was deemed to be Azerbaijan, for over 1,000 years. You can look at historic maps and you'll see from the Caspian Sea all the way down to the Mediterranean Sea, Armenians were there. That was part of their territory. During the Soviet time, this enclave of Azerbaijan was created by Stalin. With the independence of the various countries of the Soviet Union, there began to arise this understanding that this is Armenian land, not belonging to the Azeris, and conflict started, which came to this point this past few months, where the Azeris began to attack the Armenians living in that area, slaughtering them. Again, the Armenians escaped to Armenia, but those that decided to stay were mercilessly slaughtered. Again, there is this understanding that Azerbaijan owns this territory. It does not. There is no Azerbaijan as such. Where Armenia has been there as a nation, as a country for over 2,500 years. And so Turkey sent their troops into Azerbaijan. The Pakistanis sent their troops into Azerbaijan. The Syrian Muslims sent their troops into Azerbaijan to expel all the Armenians and to take all the territory again as their own. The war was ended, but there's still conflicts going on over there.
Yeah, I heard the president of Azerbaijan was on TV or something the other day and was saying that he wanted to have a corridor through Armenia and all this other kind of stuff. So, I mean, I guess it still hasn't really settled, and I think they won't be happy until they steal everybody's land. Is that what you kind of, it's kind of weird because it goes along with the genocide here. Before the genocide, about 90% of the land we're talking about was actually homeland to Armenians. And then when they kill off the people, then they say, well, they don't live there anymore. Well, they're the ones that killed them off. It's kind of a strange thing, isn't it?
Now you understand the mentality of the Turk mind.
Yeah.
The Turks, as I said, came as from the Far East. They were nomads, they were barbarians, and all they did was come and conquer and slaughter people. They have no culture, they have no foundation as a people. There's no culture, there's no history as such, other than being barbarians. If you look at these people, do you see any sense of real culture of their own? Do you see any symphonies being created, any works of art being created, any sense of heritage being created? Everything that exists, Hagia Sophia is the best example. Whenever you see a picture of Turkey, you see Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia was the Christian center of the empire, of the Byzantine Empire, and yet they made it into a mosque. They destroyed in in many cases in the interior of Turkey, you'll find stones that were taken from churches that were destroyed and used as building materials for roads or homes. You can see Armenian inscriptions on it. You can see crosses on it. There was a documentary that was recently done called The Hidden Treasures, and it shows all these stones that were taken from churches and the such and used for these building materials. The Turk has no culture except destruction, barbarism, hatred.
Okay, now, two quick questions. As this is going out to students all around the world that are watching or be watching the tape as well, why is it important for them to study genocides, or why is it important to study history? Because they'll say it happened a long time ago. Try to bring us, why is it still important? Why did your dad was hinting at it. Explain that maybe a little bit more.
It doesn't matter what ethnic group you belong to. There have been genocides around the world to all people for centuries. You can start in the Far East and work your way west to Europe. Why is it important? You want to see it happen again? Of course, the answer is no. But we do see it happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us talk about the Cambodian genocide? How many of us talk about what happened in Rwanda? At the time, maybe. But these have happened. And it's almost as if they're written on the pages of history and we turn the page to the next chapter. We have to understand that hatred has to stop. That the idea of genocide and killing of one nation, one people, one ethnic group versus another has to stop. We have so much that we can learn from each other that will produce such a beautiful world. You take all people from the Middle East to the Far East to Europe to South America, the American Indians in this country, the Alaskans, how much we can learn from each other and use and better ourselves with. But we choose to hate. We choose to kill. Why? Man's mind is something that is still being studied. I don't know the answer to that. But we should give thanks for the other person for bringing their talents, their gifts, their contribution to world civilization to the rest of us. But rather we try to suppress them. Someday, God willing, we'll learn that we need each other. And by holding on to each other, we become stronger and better people. I hope that day comes fast. We need it desperately in our world.
Oh, thank you so much, Father Tatoes. That was very eloquent and very good. We're being joined by a teacher in Romania now, live. I think there's some Armenians that lived up in Romania, and Romania is also an area in which experienced a lot of devastation during World War II and was fighting at different times with the Ottomans. So, I mean, I guess they could appreciate the situation with Ottoman Empire. For many centuries, though, did not the Armenians live in fairly good peace with the Turks, or with individual Turkish people, not the government, but the individual people? Didn't your families, I mean, it wasn't always the way that we look at it in 1915, was it?
It wasn't always that way, but the Armenians were always considered second-class people because of the fact that they were Christians. Again, and at the whim of the Turk would be the fate of the Armenian.
And would it also be correct to consider that most of the Armenians were fairly well off? The people were artisans and middle-class merchants and stuff like that. Many of them were Armenians, so they were fairly successful compared to some of the Turks too.
Yes, and you can see that especially in Istanbul at the time, um, many of the merchants were Armenians. They were successful. And this is one of the things that the young Turks wanted to do away with. Even in my father's case, in looking at his, listening to his account, they had a beautiful home where they lived. They had a second home. They had a summer home. They had Turks working for them. My grandfather was a blacksmith. They also had a factory that produced pots, pots and pans type of thing or whatnot. The Armenians always emphasized education, faith in their God, family. These were the things that were important. But education was very, very important. And it didn't matter if it was education from a book or education from a craftsman. It was that sense of learning that gave you the ability to live your life properly. And it carries on to this day.
Yeah, it doesn't really carry around in the Turkish culture the same way though, does it? Or did it?
No, yeah. You look at Turkey today. You still see that they're traveling around in donkey carts. You need to understand that sense of education, that sense of achievement, you don't see it. And it's very apparent when you look at the culture of a people, where you have arts, you see people who appreciate education, whether it's in painting, in sculpture, architecture, in music. It takes creativity, it takes intelligence to do these things. You don't see that with the Turk. Very, very, very little. And much of what they have was conquered from other people.
Right.
Even Hagia Sophia in, I believe it was the 900s, the dome came down. It was an Armenian architect that rebuilt the dome of Hagia Sophia that stands to this day. I trying to remember his name. I think it was Bulyan, but I may not be correct in that. It's something that can be looked up and verified very easily. So it was that sense of who the Armenians were that the Turks were very jealous of, but yet never had anything.
Many people may not know, but many Armenians went to Constantinople even during the Byzantine or the Roman Empire, and were in leadership in that empire too. So there's been a lot of Armenians who lived in Istanbul for many centuries, even before the fall of in 1453.
Yes, that's true. It was, don't forget, it was the center of the world during the Byzantine Empire. I mean, it was a new Rome. Yeah. The patriarchate that was in Rome, where the Pope was transferred to Constantinople, and the seat of the patriarch was there. So it was the center of the Byzantine world at the time.
Well, I appreciate your time today. I really think that students will get a lot of information out of this. It's really insightful to be able to talk to somebody of your stature to give us an explanation. Yesterday, we had somebody from the Armenian Virtual College, a professor that came on and talked a little bit about that. One of the things that we're trying to do this next year is to offer genocide programs to different schools. And I think we have 100 schools signed up in 50 countries that will be doing either a 2-week Armenian genocide program, but we do have a few people in Turkey who are doing Circassian genocide because they could get arrested if they actually did that, which is really a whole nother topic. Is that it's good to be able to live in a country where you can actually discuss and still have some freedom to discuss. We don't necessarily should take that for granted, because that could go at a moment's notice. Through the working with Anna, I've learned so much stuff. I mean, this is kind of fascinating. But the other day I was talking to the ambassador from Armenia, and I was in a conversation with him, and he was talking to a group in Boston, and it was at the World Affairs Council, a meeting in Boston, and he's talking to them, and And you're from that area, so you would know this. And he said it was the second largest group of Armenian people in the United States outside of Glendale or Southern California. But what they kind of failed to mention was that the United States role in some of this, and I just want to bring it up one more time because I think it's fascinating. Uh, the senator from Massachusetts, Henry Cabot Lodge Sr., was one of the people that stood on the Senate floor. Well, 1918, they elected Republicans for some reason to become the leaders of the Senate. They took over the Senate. So when Woodrow Wilson was trying to get the League of Nations through, he was dead set against him and Senator Bora from Idaho. And one of the problems was that Wilson had sent over two commissions to Armenia and to Turkey to find out what's going on. One was the King Crane Commission, and one was the Harbor Commission. Harbor was under James Harbor, who was the general, and they both came back and said the United States should send mandates, or they were supposed to send troops, somewhere between 55 and 85,000 American troops over there to help protect and be peacekeepers in that area, and about $82 million of money. And it sounded like a lot of stuff at the time, but if that had actually happened, and it just came 7 votes short from probably being a done deal, the First Republic of Armenia probably would never have fallen. Stalin may have never been the USSR, the Reds may have never conquered the Whites. Hitler may have never risen from, we could have stopped all kinds of stuff. So this idea that America isn't complicit in some of these things is really, we're hiding some of our hands in the sand too, because, the United States had an opportunity to help out and they kind of blinked. So, that's kind of a sad story too.
Mark, what you are saying is so true. And that's why it's so important for every person, especially your students, to do what is right, what is true, what is just, because the consequences may not be seen now, today, but can be felt 100 years from now. And here we are 106 years after the genocide began, and we're talking about it. So every action that we take today has consequences. Every action we take. And your students need to understand that so much responsibility is being placed on their shoulders, more so than in my generation. Growing up, it was a lot different back then than it is today. The responsibility of being good model citizens, of caring for each other, that responsibility is a heavy responsibility that they bear. And they hopefully will take that responsibility with them in their adulthood and bring it to a point where the foundation they lay will be the solid foundation that we can really appreciate 100 years from now.
Well, thank you so much again today, Father Tatoes. And we're going to go to our debate now. So I really appreciate your time and efforts. And I think the students are well blessed by listening to your voice today. Thank you so much, sir.
God bless you all. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Just a second, I go share. Now we're going to go to our debate. Okay.
your car in your designated Good morning, Del Valley High School. Teachers, please take a moment and listen. If you have parked your car in the parking lot and the faculty parking lot by the tennis court and the football field, you will need to move your car at this time. That parking lot will be used for graduation practice this morning, and we will need access to all of the whole parking lot. So please take a moment and remember where you parked your car and move it if you have to. Students, if you are on campus already, or of course, if you're on campus today. Students, if you have parked your car in your designated parking spot or in the student parking lot, you will need to move your car. We apologize, but we are holding graduation practice in the parking lot. You need to move your car at this time. If you have parked your car, now this is to everyone. If you have parked your car in the parking lot closest to the tennis court and the football field and the high school, that parking lot right there, closest to C, you will need to move your car. Please move your car to the first two rows closest to Ross Road. Teachers, faculty, and staff, please move your car to the back parking lot. One more reminder, teachers, I cannot sign your forms today. We will start signing forms tomorrow. I will start signing forms tomorrow at 8 a.m. Thank you.
Any form of racial privilege, and they just make themselves poor by
Video worldwide right now. We didn't make it. Back. They can't see anything. I gave, had a neat experience yesterday. I gave the professional development on fifth grade.
I saw that watch. You did a good job with that. I meant to email you something.
We asked me to do another one.
That's awesome. No, I think you made a great case for the use of that.
I didn't really have a whole lot of stuff because I was in between doing some other things.
I invited Holly to come, she's not gonna be able to make it this morning, so I thought I'd have her come, see what's going on and give her.
Pardon the interruption, Del Valley High School. If you are a senior and you are on campus, please report to the main learning commons at this time. Again, seniors, please report to the main learning commons at this time. Oh, I apologize. Please report to the main cafeteria at this time. All seniors, please report to the main cafeteria at this time. Thank you.
They can do it noon now. After the practice, you got practice right now outside, and then after the practice, no vacation.
Okay, well, I need to go back to for my Friday because I was gonna have critique and this is. Okay. Should I do this? I'll be right back. So grab a present for run out of the park.
Are you going to practice? They call them practice right now.
It's supposed to be at 9:45.
You said everybody's gonna be out there. That's why we were worried about the picture. So, just come here after the practice, and then we'll give him, I said, 11:30, 12 o'clock, whatever, we'll take pictures. Thank you.
Is that for this year?
What?
Is that for this year?
Yeah. We'll go to the interview.
Yes. How is that? What are people doing? No. No.
Now, we got easy yesterday. Man. Yeah. We were arguing with Canada and it's,
Start summer with a 5G premium membership.
That ends our meeting for today. Thank you so much.